So आज का session I wanted to talk to you about how to research companies and shortlisting companies. Um, Typically, when you can use like free platforms and paid platforms also. Free may I think most of you guys already use LinkedIn.
Mm.
What else do you guys use in free?
Mm. I use LinkedIn, Indeed, and there's also Shine.com, which is again like an inbound.
Hmm.
But I don't get a lot of quality leads from or quality jobs from anything other than LinkedIn. So
Okay.
I spend like 90% of my time in LinkedIn itself.
Okay.
Same here for me. LinkedIn and IIM jobs is one portal at times I look into,
Hmm.
but banking on LinkedIn.
Okay. Um, so do you have you ever guys used Traction for Traction?
No, I haven't used Traction.
Okay.
Not heard also.
It's our competitor actually. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because of the fundraising for.
Yeah.
Okay. So Traction's good. Crunchbase is good. Inc 42, Your Story, Tech in Asia, and LinkedIn, of course. Um, the deal is like the more the platform basically gives you information about the company and the industry, the better it is because then you can sort of use your filters and have more control over what you're looking at. तो filters में क्या क्या आता है? Location, very important because people, as you progress further, you don't want to move too much or you want to move to a certain place only. Industry, um, size, very important. Um, do you guys look at size when you're searching for companies?
I don't
Yes.
really filter for sizes. No.
Okay. So, why do you filter for size?
See, more from a work culture point of view, because I have had experience working in a mid-size MNC, 1,000 plus employees.
Hmm.
I worked in a startup of 10 employees, a team size of 4 or 5 people also.
Hmm.
And now I am with a conglomerate Hiranandani group,
Hmm.
right? So I see the size again I don't want to intend to go back to a very initial phase startup where I'm expected to end to end जो
Hmm.
किया है कर चुके हैं मैं
Hmm.
so experience तो है but I don't want that kind of a work life right now.
Right, right, great. So I'll come back to why the size and the stage matter a lot in a few minutes. So stage is very important also. These websites give you like what stage the company is at, typically defined by the fundraise they're doing. कि seed stage पे है कि series A है series B है. Typically seed stage पे people give you money to basically figure out your product market fit. Series A पे they'll give you like growth money. Or series B पे they'll basically give you scale money कि you figured out what people want in this market. Now I'll give you money to basically make your team bigger and just raise that. Um, Funding status like could be important if you're looking for money. Um, Unfunded companies rarely pay higher salaries or market salaries because they don't have the means to. So if you're looking, if money is important and looking for like getting market salaries, then sort of use this filter like funding status kya hai, and who's also funding it, because people do double down on investments. Like if they have reputed investors, then there's a higher chance of the company sort of being validated by smart people, or at least the so-called smart people. So, so these websites will give you filters. I already talked to you about this. Free methods may you can also search in the industry. Like I recently used ChatGPT, like to talk about like give me 30 top 30 agri tech startups in India, for example, and it gave me a list. And then I started looking up those companies using these other websites. Huh.
But that will give an outdated list of until 2021, I believe.
The thing is, if those companies still exist and they're doing well, that's a good thing, no?
हाँ
So,
ठीक है.
So, but you can Google it also. The idea is to basically get listicles. Like अगर free method use करना है तो using listicles is a good one, because if you know your industry, then you want to know who are the ones who are doing it well. Um, you can even go year wise, because these listicles get updated. So, top 30 2020, top 30 2018, 2016. So you can use that to basically like come across new companies. There are a lot of companies. Sometimes we feel like the companies ही नहीं है, startups ही नहीं है industry में, but that's not true. It's just that we don't know about it because अपना like search is very myopic. We only come at LinkedIn, which is a push platform. Like they're pushing jobs on us, but what we want to do is pull, right? We want to figure out which companies we want and we want to get to them. The reason I sort of was insisting last week on cover letters is because the pull method is what we're going to focus on. Uh, we don't want to basically just be applying to jobs which are there, जो कि करना भी चाहिए, of course, like you want to like spray and pray also, but the other method is to actually write to people where you want to work, and those are the most powerful applications. Because imagine if you were starting a company and you came up with a job role and you had 30 applicants versus you got an email from someone saying I want to do this job because I'm the right person because of ABC reasons, and I've seen your background, you do good work, our values match, I've gone through the product, these are the 1-2 things which I feel like you could do better. Imagine the kind of impact you have versus those other applicants. So being intentional goes a very long way with job applications. Similar to how dating also works, like like you can, the more the more intentional you are, the better it is. Baki, Naukri, AngelList, there are a few remote websites also, but if you guys are interested, then I'll talk about it. But otherwise, I think these companies, these platforms actually work really well to basically figure out, at least researching companies.
Is okay for researching purpose, yes, but for applying purpose, is Naukri still relevant? Because the kind of expectations that we as applicants are having from LinkedIn, the
yeah, so like I said, the method that we'll talk about is a more pull method. It's not going to be like applying through these platforms. It's basically figuring out who the right companies for you are.
Right.
And especially if you take a paid subscription, then you get access to a lot more information in one go versus वो फिर थोड़ा freemium type scene होता है कि आपको 30 companies के बाद they'll basically say कि like wait for a day or something. LinkedIn also does this. They will limit your number of invitations you can send in a day.
Got it. So, Sajid, one question. When you look for companies, do you filter by HQ, location, funding stage? Do you also look at fast-growing companies or companies that have grown rapidly in the last 1 year, 2 years? Is that also a criteria you look at?
Yeah, so stage is something very, very critical to look at. The idea is, that's what I was coming to, that I want to talk about stage. Just let me complete this methods to basically come across companies. Listicles on recently funded startups. A lot of companies get PR because they raise money. So that's also a good place to basically look for like recently funded startups in this space. That's because once they raise money, the investors basically do a PR for them. No startup has that kind of money to basically go to media directly. Recently funded also means that they're hiring, because a lot of people raise money to say कि मुझे team बड़ा करनी है. So they are on the lookout, but they might not have like processes set in, or they might not have like an HR or like like all of that being done. So you can get ahead early just by looking at the news. Sudhir, what?
So my present company is technically a startup. Okay, when I joined, the company was 150 employees strength, and in the last 2 years they've grown to 650. because we are heavily funded by the Hiranandani group. Okay, so just what definition of startup क्या है? From 0 to 5 years old company है तो that's a startup. Or how do we define?
I don't know the definition of startup anymore because everyone talks about being a startup. Like a unicorn company gets to behave strangely because they call themselves a startup. So, but why are you? Maybe let's get into why are you asking this question, and maybe I'll be able to answer that.
No, so the point is कि when we say startup, not necessarily it has a startup culture, because अभी in my present organization, when we have all the processes set, we have it's working just like a established organization, but it is technically a startup. So how do we then go by while we are applying and we are from outside, we don't know how well the processes are set, right?
So typically, like a good analogy is like companies are like human beings also. Like a mature company also behaves like a mature individual, and like a growth stage startup would be somewhere there they're trying to discover themselves. They're trying to like maybe in their 20s, early stage startup would be like a seed stage company, like कि in their teens probably trying to figure out कि पढ़ाई क्या करनी है, where do they want to head, what direction is right for them. They'll be more erratic, they have no control over themselves, etc. In their 20s they'll probably like figure out अच्छा ये direction है, want to be a software engineer, probably a doctor, etc. And then they're trying to figure out how to like rise up the ladder, etc. So long hours, different. So I'll come to the stage again. I think it's stage related, but a good analogy is the companies are also like humans that way. You can think of them as that. Set processes, mature companies will be a little more settled. They know where they're living full time, they know who their family is, like who their friends are, what they're doing over the weekends. Like they're not going to be a lot of unpredictable stuff that is going to be happening, because they know what works for them, and their core has become very solid, which obviously has a lot of advantages. But if you want to grow fast, then it's going to be tough in that company, right? So वो trade off है. So okay, let me just quickly finish this. Great places to work also comes up with the list. These places, the mature organizations that you're talking about, these guys have standard org practices. So if you like work life balance a lot, then this is another list you can look at. And job portals पे तो आप लोग देखते ही हो तो okay. Are such awards bought? I don't know. Maybe.
I think to an extent, yes, but we can't really dismiss the entire awards. I know cases where they were bought, but then I know a lot of companies that are actually good also. Yes.
The deal with awards is like some of them I feel are merited on merit, and some of them are bought because they want to do both, right? They want to keep the good ones in them so that they get credibility, but they want to make money also because they want to run their shop. So all these top 30 under 30, 50 under 50, all these awards shows also, like it's always a mixed bag. There's never like a 0 or 1 kind of situation. Right. Things to look at when you are looking at companies. 1 second, let me just get some water.
Vilash.
I'm there.
Yeah, I was asking, എവിടെയാണ് കേരളത്തിലാണോ?
ട്രിവാൻഡ്രത്താണ്. സ്ഥലം ട്രിവാൻഡ്രമാണ്, ഇപ്പൊ ഡൽഹിയിലാണ്.
അത് ശരി.
സുധീന്റെ എവിടെയാ സ്ഥലം?
ഞാൻ മുംബൈ, താമസം ബോംബെയില്, നാട് പാലക്കാട്.
Oh, I saw CVയിൽ I saw that you speak Tamil also.
Yeah, border wala case.
Okay.
इसके लिए
Huh. So, when looking at companies, once you identify, this is my list, this is my industry, you also have to go into what are they selling. Because at the end of the day, that's where the buck stops, right? The product that they've made, you should know what it is. Because if you don't know what it is, it's going to be very hard for you to eventually like succeed. Um, because that's where the company's success comes from in what they're selling. Um, second thing to look at, what is the problem they're solving? Because वो प्रोडक्ट उन्हें बनाया होगा कुछ प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने के लिए. Like, is the problem relevant? Is it going to be relevant in 2 years? What is your take on that? The reason I said you should look at companies and like an investor is because, like what we discussed, like time and energy, right? You have to basically be committed to a job in a long run. So, does that product and the solution or the problem itself relevant in the long run? ऐसा ना हो कि like the company becomes redundant because that problem doesn't exist. The other thing obviously is ki, it's a bunch of smart people, so they'll figure out how to pivot and like do all of that, but then it'll go back to a very nascent stage again when it does. So do you want, like, then you have to go back to that phase, like Facebook ke saath jo hua when they became Meta. They went back from like a mature company to like trying to figure out how to be relevant again in the long run. How confident are you with the
Okay.
solution?
So Sachit, you're talking from an entrepreneur perspective. I want employees who sustain long term, right? More often than not, employees don't think that way. Employees के लिए motivating factor for a lot of them is purely money and CTC. Okay, so the trend is that मैं switch करूँगा तो ही मुझे 30% 50% hike मिलेगा. So and that's why you see the hopping culture of every 1 year people are switching jobs.
Yeah.
Right. So from an employer perspective, what you say makes sense.
Yeah.
From an employee perspective, how does that align?
How long are you planning to work, Sudhir? Like in your career?
Okay. Personally, for me, I think maybe 10 more years.
10 more years. Like a typical person sort of ends up working 35 years, 35, 40 years, right? Before they retire. How much will they hop? The thing is, it's very sort of वो थोड़ा market में अभी hype है, so people like do it, but eventually everyone sort of sobers down and realizes they need to build a career, and that sort of realization sort of pushes you into figuring out where are you going to put your roots down. You can't be jumping industries, you can't be jumping roles, you can't be jumping ships every few years, because चलो ठीक है पैसा तो ज़्यादा मिलता है, but after a time पैसा भी नहीं मिलता है. No one's gonna give you money just because like after you tap out at like 40-50 lakh. No, and even if you do get money, for example, a lot of people at Byju's now they can't find money, the same kind of money in other companies, because no one's willing to pay like a 30-year-old that much money, because they have like 2 years in edtech, 3 years in edtech. So the reason I'm saying this is because you have to invest in yourself. Forget the company and what the company wants. You want the best outcome for yourself, and the best outcome comes because the only way the best outcome comes is when you can compound your time in a meaningful way. And the reason, actually I didn't present my screen this time, I should have. One second. I had a slide which says this exact same thing. So step number 1 was, once you identify the right direction, step number 2 is running in the right direction. So, it's easy to sort of hop on, hop off. वो mentality है market में, and it's been there for like past 10 years. But I'm saying on a personal POV, it does make sense to basically like figure out what you want and like do that properly. क्योंकि आप खड्डा 5 जगह खोद सकते हो लेकिन पानी तो एक जगह खोदने से ही मिलता है. Like it's not a it's not to use a metaphor. ठीक है. So once you basically go through the list of companies that you have in your thing, and you have like a POV on their product and what they're selling, and is their product relevant or not, write this down as a note in front of that company in your Excel or like a Google sheet, so that you remember what your notes are, what your POV is, and we'll sort of come back to how you can use it also later. Okay, I want to talk about stage. Typically 4 stages to a company: pre-PMF, product market fit, growth and scale. ठीक है. Pre-PMF, like think about these companies as a wartime, peacetime kind of companies. Okay, समझो 4 companies हैं, wartime, peacetime है. Wartime people look very different than peacetime people. And you would have seen these people also in your company, that some people thrive in chaos. The more things get ambiguous, the better they are able to do. Some people are not very good at like wartime thing. They're like, oh like आज भी meeting रख दी Saturday को, Sunday को phone कर रहे हैं हम काम के लिए, like most people. And there's no good or bad, it's just a bad fitment. That's the issue, that sometimes like like आज भी पुश करवा रहे हैं रात को बिठा के, like ऐसा क्या हो जाएगा. Those are peacetime people. People who want like work-life balance, who want like a little more stability in terms of processes, in terms of people. थोड़ा erratic behavior उनको अच्छा नहीं लगता है. So you have to identify who you are technically. Like, are you a wartime person, or are you a peacetime person? And typically this changes as you grow up, like in your career. You're okay with a lot more things when you're younger because you're learning. So there's a lot of trade-off with chalo theek hai, long hours, weekends. But as you grow up, you have more stability in your life. You want companies also basically to reflect that. Or if you want like a good strong stint where कुछ फोड़ना है, अब life, personal life stable है, अब कुछ फोड़ना है, you go back to a wartime company, and that's where you go forward or something. So I'm just the reason I'm mentioning this is you have to pick according to your temperament. If you don't pick according to your temperament, you will be miserable in that company, whichever company it is. बहुत ही फाड़ू company भी हो, where you've had the greatest role, if your temperament doesn't match the company's mood, it will give you a hard time. And that hard time sort of, it comes across as this bitching kind of thing. The other side of thing is it comes across as boring. Yeah, things are so slow. ये लोग like there's approvals, इनको बहुत time लगता है एक project करने में. यहाँ तो मेरी ज़िंदगी निकल रही है, like I'm wasting time, etc. So the reason peacetime companies are able to basically like afford that kind of time is because they've figured out how they want to do this. And you have to be okay with like clocking in, clocking out, and then also living your life with other things. So the reason I'm saying you have to identify who you are and how people are around you, it'll sort of help you understand how to pick properly, how to make your judgment better. Let me give you an example. Like pre-PMF is wartime because they don't know what they're doing yet. They need to basically spend as much time as they have on trying to क्योंकि momentum बहुत कम होता है, मतलब in companies के पास, like it's a very early stage, founder led, first circle, they're trying to basically survive before they fall off a cliff. So they're going to put all their time, energy, effort into basically working, right? So if you join something pre-PMF, be ready to basically just like that is your identity technically for most people. Once they find PMF, once they start like having paid customers, they know like where they sit in the market, um, they start seeing some stable income coming in, they don't want to move away from that. So then it sort of becomes a little more peacetime. कि हमें पता है कि हमारा प्रोडक्ट क्या है, you know, we don't want to move away from the product. Now we want to figure out like the other things. So then they start like building processes, systems. It becomes a little more peacetime. So then comes the growth stage, which is I figured out, you know, my product, and now either I'll basically figure out a new product or I'll scale into new geographies. उसमें भी फिर then again you need a wartime person, because you can't just like go and win territories, or you can't just like create new products without having that mindset. And once you've done that, then you come to a mature stage again, then you have peacetime again, right? जहाँ पर the core is very stable, you know, take time, it'll take you can like build your career there, you can spend like 20 years at Google, they have all the L1 to L30, you know, ranks that will take you like forever to climb. So but it gives you a lot of stability.
So scaling stage comes in taking 10 to 100 or 1 to 100, that comes in growth stage or mature stage?
Scaling stage?
Growth, right?
Growth stage.
Growth, no?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the stage of the company. It's very, very important. एक यहाँ पर छोटा सा I want to tell you something. If you guys are very picky about what kind of roles you want, try and sort of reverse engineer the kind of people who basically end up in those roles. It becomes important if you want to upskill yourself. Like a very basic example, if you want to be a management consultant, you go to a management consultant, like go to 10 profiles on LinkedIn, see what their background is. You know, like उन्होंने क्या जॉब किया है, उन्होंने क्या पढ़ाई की है, etc. and find a common thread. In this example, you'll find the common thread to be a tier 1 MBA. And if you don't have that, you're not going to get into that sector. So in this case, your actionable becomes very clear कि हाँ मुझे अब MBA करना है to become this person. So you can use this information to reverse engineer, let's say, you know, like a success manager or like a senior success manager. I don't know. वो उनके पास क्या certification है? You know, what is the kind of background they have? What is the kind of training they have? So you already have that in place, and you can start now. Let's say you're sure about building a career in that. So start investing in those things which basically give you that boost or leg up into getting that kind of role. Especially true for technical roles, because people look for this kind of signaling. Because technically है तो पूरा cohort, you know, community ही. Everyone's sort of going to the same place to, you know, like hire the same kind of people. So you want to be part of that. You want to signal that I'm also part of that cohort. But this is for people who, you know, like if you're very, very sure about like what you want, it's a good strategy to do that.
Got it. Yeah.
ठीक है. Next is shortlisting companies. So आपके पास, you know, you've researched, you've sort of written down an exhaustive list of all the companies that you know want according to filter stage, what their, you know, product is, what they're selling, what the problem they're solving, etc. वो सब करने के बाद you want to, you know, like shortlist the kind of companies you like. Now typically how many companies do you guys apply to when you were looking up?
I cast a pretty wide net. Like if I see like 10-20 jobs, I make a plan that I'll apply it in the next 4-5 days. So I would say like 20-30 companies per week average.
Okay, that's a very
So for me, not a very planned approach. Whatever LinkedIn suggests, throws me up suggestions related to my roles, I apply. And presently the mode of application is that कैसे भी company हो, I just want to take that interview experience. क्या पूछने वाले देखना, where I stand in the market. That is the attitude with which I am applying presently.
Okay. Have you guys ever experienced a sales funnel?
Yes.
So sales funnel में क्या करते हैं वो लोग? Basically they have 1000 leads, right?
Yeah, correct.
Then they qualify those leads. Then
Yes.
they like reach out to them. Then they have a 1%, 2% conversion. Same
Correct.
funda. You have to apply to 200 companies. You'll get short selected probably in like, you know, 10, 20.
Mm.
Okay. In those 10, 20, you'll probably like crack 2, 3 with the kind of interviews that you go. उसमें से एक या दो ऑफर आएंगे. And then you select one. But you have to apply to 200 companies at a very bare minimum. The reason I'm saying, even if your profile is great and you have a great CV and you have a great cover letter, you know what you want, etc., but you want options. One of the key things at the negotiation level is that do you have offers in hand or not,
Mm.
right? If you don't have offers in hand, then like you can only negotiate so much. You can only say कि अच्छा please yes कर दो.
Okay, one question on this.
हाँ.
So, another trend that I have seen my friends also do is that for negotiation's sake, they'll say, I have multiple offers with me. The other one is offering me this much, to get a leverage. So, in those circumstances, the employer might ask, okay, show us your offer letter.
तो होना चाहिए ना कुछ
Okay.
हाथ में.
तो मतलब पूछेंगे तो देना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो
You can obviously like you can show it, but you don't have to send it.
You can send the masked version, right?
You can send a masked version, yeah.
Okay, and I'm just asking doubts. Don't judge me on this. Let's say I'm creating a fake offer letter. They are not going to come and check. मैं तो अपने इसमें दिखाने वाला हूँ, whatever, right? So is that I mean, obviously it's not an ethical way to moral or ethical way to get an increased CTC. But if I do so, is there any mechanism for the employer to find out? Okay, the fraud है.
Depends on the employer. And depending on the seniority of the role. At a VP level.
No, however big the companies, even in my present organization, they did a third party reference check and all. But I'm not lying on the CV. I'm not lying on my documentation. I'm just saying कि मेरे को एक offer मिला था, उसके basis में I'm asking you to raise your compensation for me.
I'm saying 2% chance that you get found out. It'll destroy your credibility. That's the problem with this whole thing. Like most of the times, people forge their salary slips, they'll forge their bank statements. लोग बहुत कुछ करते हैं. And you can do it, but then the thing is, like, if you get caught 2% also, and this kind of stuff like remains in records, with them also. So I'm saying कुछ हो गया तो फिर like that'll just destroy your career. Let's say that at this company you're doing well, you don't want like have this in the back of your head कि I sort of could get caught, could get like
Right. As I said, I have not done it. I'm just asking out of curiosity.
No. Like ये चीज़ ना salary slip में बहुत होता है. Because if you can definitely inflate your salary and then they will have to match that, because Indian system में तो पिछले salary के against ही benchmark करके देते हैं पैसे. That's their modus operandi, right? Like that's how they want to basically benchmark people कि पिछली company कितना value कर रही थी, instead of like figuring out how they want to value people. So लोग करते हैं fraud, but it like the more senior you are in your company, the higher the chances of like the higher the risk of being
Correct. More at stakes.
Yeah, more at stake. So, and then doing it for merit has a different feel altogether. Like you want to feel like you've earned it.
Yeah.
That feeling is unparalleled, right? So it's just that.
Market decides your rate, not you.
No, you can definitely do that. We'll come to that in the negotiation bit in the last session. तो हमने कर लिया basically shortlist now, but shortlist have a huge laundry list. and keep adding to that laundry list. Um, a lot of times we get very peculiar on कि मुझे मुंबई में ही business development करना है FMCG company के लिए. Like as you basically exhaust that option, try and sort of remove one filter after the other. Then your number of options will go higher. Let's say you want to stick to FMCG, you want to stick to BD, let's say you become location agnostic. Huge bump in number of companies you can look at now. You can't find something there. Now you're at, I really want to do BD because I'm really good at sales. Hata do FMCG. Then you're, sector agnostic. Huge bump in number, like 100x number of companies will start showing up for you. Then let's say BD, you've decided कि मुझे BD B2B में आता है. Let's say you're open to B2C also now. Huge bump. So I'm saying as you progress in this search in the 60 to 90 days, water it down. Water it down because you will not find enough opportunities if you're very, very peculiar on कि मुझे यही चाहिए. It'll become very frustrating. After 3 months, you'll feel कि jobs ही नहीं है. A lot of people right now in the market say कि jobs नहीं है. It's because they're very stuck on the fact कि मुझे यही करना है. Market sort of moves according to like whatever is happening currently, but people get stuck on like, oh मुझे तो यही आता है. Okay, so you have a Google sheet, you have list of companies, you have your POV on them. Jitna hi 1-2 line is also fine. It's not like or a yes and no, or like your confidence level also is fine. Then start looking at who their HRs are, who their founders are, business heads कौन है, HOD कौन है, like stuff like that becomes very important on LinkedIn. Try and figure out who these people are and add them. Per company, add like 10 to 15 people. The reason to do this is, I'll come to that later. But once you have all these people, write the important, like at least the founders, the business heads, the HR heads, HR BP वगैरह जितने भी हैं, उनका नाम लिख लो कंपनी के आगे. And I'm saying 10-15 because not everyone's going to accept your invite immediately. So out of the 10, probably like 3 or 4 accept the invite. Send them a LinkedIn message, and we'll come to the LinkedIn message also. It has to be like a short, sweet snippet of your cover letter only. The other thing to do is basically in their profile you'll also find their email IDs. Or you can use one of these tools, Chrome extensions, to basically get their contact details, and उनका email ID copy paste करके उस Google sheet में डाल लो. तो आपके पास नाम हो गया, designation हो गया, email ID हो गया, and your POV on the company, and any other notes that you want to build. So have that exhaustive Google sheet ready. Then
sorry.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, one question. So you said that we are supposed to apply for at least 200 companies. So do you want us to create this list for 200 companies ideal scenario, or would you want us to shortlist this further? Like, how are you looking at this?
So I'm saying if you're on a weekly basis, you're applying to 30 companies, then technically like in 6 weeks, you're doing 200 companies.
Okay, correct. So overall, you're saying
overall, of course. Like I said, like the approach has to be my dream companies, like then water it down slowly.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
But keep applying. The point is to basically like not stop applying.
Got it.
Keep the funnel, basically you can basically start with this very narrow funnel, and then in that narrow funnel, in your tier 1, you can obviously write about product suggestions also, because that's what you really want. The amount of effort versus how much you want it, you can sort of match that.
Got it. And my question is, again, this is specific to the pull approach of companies, right? Because LinkedIn, they will keep sending you companies, and if it's like an easy apply where you don't even need a cover letter, you just do like double clicks and you don't even know which company you applied. So I mean, how I'm understanding from your conversation is mostly for the companies who you are shortlisting for the pulled approach. This is something which might work. Is that
Yeah.
is that correct?
Yeah, you can also go to LinkedIn on their company page, look at the jobs that they have open and apply to them also. I'm saying
Okay.
bombard that company with every resource that you have. Like उनके LinkedIn में openings क्या है, उनके HR का email ID क्या है, उनका founder का email ID क्या है. Show them that you want them. Like,
Got it.
like message them on Instagram. I just want to like sound very stalker, but like you have to show them that you really want this.
Got it. Got it.
The reason to write a love letter is also basically just for that, saying ki, I really want this, I'm the best, you are the best, we could be best together, kind of, like just um, yeah. Like LinkedIn में उनके jobs में उनकी company profile में if you look at jobs then they have all the jobs openings listed. um, तो वो भी एक तरीका है. You can go and like do the push thing also.
ठीक है, makes sense. Yeah, it's like a mix of both. Yeah.
Technically you have to apply with every possible mean you have. The reason I tell you about the push thing is because it has a better conversion rate than the push thing. The pull thing has a better conversion rate because you're writing to people who are actually hiring, so you're jumping a few steps.
Got it.
Like if the let's say you write to the investor. I add investors also in the mix apart from companies, because technically if the investor is impressed by your profile, he's the one who's putting in the money, right? So he wants good people in the company. So अगर वो co-founder को बोलता है कि इसकी profile देख, you'll definitely get a conversation at least. And that is a sure shot. No one ignores an email from the investor, right?
Right.
So if you get the investor's email ID, say like, oh, I'm in love with this company, like etc., and I want to work here, they will definitely forward it to the relevant person. And that relevant person has to at least have a conversation with you, because if you follow up with the investor, he can't go back and say कि अच्छा मैंने बात ही नहीं की, miss हो गया. So it has to close the loop, right? Even if it's a 5-minute conversation, you'll get that 5-minute.
Right.
So I'm saying ये थोड़े hacks हैं, like online में you can basically do. The other thing, of course, is go to co-working spaces. Like instead of sitting at home and applying, take a subscription. 10,000 रुपए लगते हैं, 15,000 रुपए लगते हैं. Go to a nice co-working space which has an active community. Network your way out of a job. Like I would say, Abhilash, like if you're looking for a stopgap solution, do a stopgap solution through a offline mean instead of doing an online job. Meet people who basically you can work with and they understand your situation, etc. And that way you'll get a job which sort of reflects your reality instead of you applying for a full-time job and then switching in 6 months. Are you catching my drift what I'm proposing?
So stopgap solution as in
No, I'm saying like stopgap solution as in like if you think of this job as something that's temporary, कि मैं यह अभी कर रहा हूँ so that I can look for another job so that some money comes in. Maybe you'll find something like where they'll pay you as a consultant or something to help out for 50,000, 1 lakh rupees or something, like monthly, where you can pay your bills at least, but you don't have to like commit to a full-time job.
Got it. Okay.
That way, you'll end up spending, because a full-time job requires that much amount of effort and energy, right? So looking out for jobs is also a full-time job. So doing 2 jobs is very tough.
Got it. Makes sense.
But you are already employed, right?
Yeah, I'm already employed.
So where is the scope for the stopgap approach comes?
That's something I have to quit and figure out.
But what I understood from Sachit's talk is that you are not employed presently and you have something in big plan in the next few months. Then what he says makes sense.
No, I'm currently employed.
In that case, it'll be tough to basically do this because you have to leave your job and then sort of figure out, the next steps.
Yeah.
But if you're already employed, then like the offline thing is tough to execute for sure. But for like I would say because after 8-10 years, the amount of commitment you need to have in a full-time job becomes proportionately very high. So it's okay to take a few months. I mean, if your finances allow you to,
Mm-hmm.
and figure out the right thing, because you don't want to be back in the market like in 6 months because you picked something because you wanted to get out of one situation. Because then you're looking at it like a long-term pain versus a short-term pain.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think today's session was just this.